Hey everyone, welcome to your deep dive. We're the Moore's Global Finance Podcast team, and we've got something shiny for you today.
Shiny indeed.
Precious metals, specifically money metals exchange. Are they the real deal? Or just a gilded mirage?
We're going to figure that out. That's what we're here for.
Exactly. And I've got our in-house precious metals expert here to help us sort through it all. Ready to dive in?
Absolutely. Let's get into it.
So, there's always this talk about gold and silver being safe havens, especially when things get a little rocky.
Right, like when the economy is doing a little wobble.
Yeah. Our source material even calls them safe havens. But why? Why are people so drawn to them, even when the stock market is having a bit of a meltdown?
Well, there's a historical element to it. Gold has always been seen as valuable. It's tangible. It's limited. You can't just print more of it like you can with money.
So it's like a constant in a world of variables.
Yeah, exactly. It's a store of value that's held up for centuries, even when governments and currencies have gone a bit wonky.
I see. It's like that inherent trust factor. Now let's talk about Money Metals Exchange itself. I read about their founder, Stefan Gleason, and his idea of creating a more transparent marketplace for precious metals. How does that translate to what they're actually doing?
Well, it's interesting because Money Metals Exchange doesn't just focus on buying and selling. They seem to be very big on educating their customers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they have a lot of resources about IRAs, different types of storage options. It's like they want you to understand before you buy.
So they're not just pushing a product, they're providing information too. That's interesting. What about their services? I know they have this monthly purchase plan,
Right.
which seems like a more approachable way to start investing in precious metals.
Yeah, the monthly purchase plan is all about dollar cost averaging. So instead of buying a lot all at once, you spread out your purchases over time.
So it's kind of like dipping your toes in the water instead of jumping in head first.
Exactly. You buy small amounts regularly, and it helps to average out the price fluctuations.
That makes a lot of sense,
Yeah.
especially if you're new to precious metals. Now, they also offer a precious metals IRA, which I'm guessing is a bit different from a regular IRA that's full of stocks and bonds.
Yeah, a precious metals IRA allows you to hold physical gold and other precious metals within your retirement account.
So instead of owning shares in a company, you actually own physical gold.
That's right. It's seen as a way to diversify your portfolio and potentially hedge against inflation.
So it's an extra layer of security for your retirement.
Yeah.
But holding physical gold, that brings up the question of storage. That seems like a bit of a logistical headache.
You'd think so. But Money Metals Exchange offers segregated storage, which means your precious metals are held separately from everyone else's.
So it's like having your own little vault within their facility.
Precisely. And they've taken a lot of steps to ensure the security of their storage.
Like what?
Well, they have Fort Knox level security with multiple layers of protection, independent audits to make sure everything is above board and they're fully insured.
So they've really thought about that whole side of things. The buying, the storing, even offering a loan service where you can use your gold as collateral if you need quick access to cash.
That's right. They've tried to make it a comprehensive service.
Wow, that's impressive. But we did come across some negative reviews mentioning some confusion or misinformation around their fees. How do their fees actually work?
They do have transaction fees and storage fees, which are pretty standard in the industry.
Right.
But what's interesting is that their buyback prices tend to be higher than the industry average, which can offset some of those costs.
So it's a bit of a trade-off there. Higher initial costs, but a better return when you sell.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to carefully read the terms and conditions no matter which company you're going with.
Absolutely. Informed decisions are the best decisions. Now, I saw that they sell more than just the standard gold coins and bars. They have starter packs for beginners. And even some unusual items like building blocks and bullets. Are people actually buying these as investments?
I think those novelty items are more for collectors or people looking for a unique gift.
Yeah, like the I want a gold bullet crowd.
Right, exactly. If you're purely focused on investment, the standard bullion options are generally a safer bet.
Okay, so know your goals. Before we move on, are there any red flags we should be aware of with Money Metals Exchange? Anything that's setting off alarm bells?
Yep. Those negative reviews about the fees highlight the importance of doing your own due diligence.
Absolutely.
You can't just take things at face value. You have to read the fine print, understand all the details before you commit.
Okay, so it's all about being an informed consumer. That's good advice for anything, really, not just precious metals. So far, we've covered Money Metals Exchange's history, their founder's vision, their services, even some potential pitfalls. But the ultimate question is,
Are they legit?
that's right.
Yeah.
And based on what we've seen so far, what do you think?
From what I've gathered, They seem to be a legitimate company. They've been around for over a decade. They have a good rating with the Better Business Bureau, and they seem committed to transparency and education, which are huge pluses in this industry.
So not some shady fly-by-night operation.
Not at all. They seem to be in it for the long haul, which is a good sign.
That's reassuring. But how do they compare to their competitors? What sets them apart in such a crowded marketplace?
Well, that's a great question, and one we'll delve into further as we continue our deep dive into Money Metals Exchange.
Okay, let's do that.
I think one of the things that really sets Money Metals Exchange apart is this whole idea of segregated storage.
Yeah. You mentioned independent audits earlier. What does that actually mean in terms of protecting my investment?
Well, it's basically like having a third party come in and verify that everything is as secure as they say it is.
So it's not just Money Metals Exchange saying, trust us.
Exactly. These auditors are completely independent, so they have no incentive to sugarcoat anything.
So they're checking the physical security, the inventory management, making sure everything's on the up and up.
Right, it's an extra layer of accountability.
That's reassuring. Especially when you're dealing with something as valuable as precious metals.
Yeah.
Now, you also mentioned that you can actually use your gold as collateral for a loan. How does that work?
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting option if you need some cash quickly but don't want to sell your metals.
So it's like accessing your gold's value without actually giving up ownership?
Exactly. And they offer loans up to 75% of your holdings value.
Wow. That's pretty generous. Are there any downsides to that, though?
Well, like any loan, there's going to be interest. So you have to make sure you understand the terms before you sign up.
Right. Compare it to other options you might have. Make sure it makes sense for your situation.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's say I'm ready to buy some precious metals from Money Metals Exchange. What's the process like?
Well, it's actually pretty straightforward. You can browse their selection online, see live pricing, place your order just like any other e-commerce site.
Okay, so no need to go to a physical store or anything?
Nope, it's all done online, and they accept a variety of payment methods too.
Like what?
Bank wires, credit cards, even Bitcoin.
Bitcoin. Wow, they're really keeping up with the times.
Right, but let's say I'm ready to buy, but I'm not sure what to buy. What kind of guidance would you give someone trying to choose the right precious metals?
Well, this is where those educational resources we talked about really come in handy.
Okay.
Money Metals Exchange has a lot of information about the different types of metals, their historical performance, and how they might fit into a diversified portfolio.
So it's not just about buying gold blindly. There's strategy involved.
Right, you need to do your research, understand your own risk tolerance,
Yeah.
and then decide what mix of metals is right for you.
Okay, makes sense. Now, we talked about those starter packs earlier. Are those a good option for beginners?
Yeah, they can be. They usually include a mix of gold and silver coins or bars, which gives you a taste of both.
So it's a good way to get your feet wet without making a huge investment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about the bigger picture for a second. We're in this weird economic climate, right?
Yeah, inflation's up, interest rates are rising.
Yeah.
It's a strange time.
How do precious metals fit into all of that?
That's a good question. What role do they play in a portfolio during times like these?
Well, traditional investments like stocks and bonds can be pretty vulnerable during periods of high inflation.
Right, because the value of the dollar is decreasing.
Exactly. Precious metals, on the other hand, have historically held their value, even increased in value during economic turmoil.
So it's like a hedge against inflation.
Exactly. It's about preserving your wealth, having something tangible that you can hold on to.
So it's not about putting all your eggs in one basket, but about diversifying and having some protection.
Exactly. Now, you brought up a good point earlier about the risk of the price of gold dropping.
Yeah, no investment is foolproof, right?
Of course not.
Okay.
And precious metals are no exception, but they have shown a resilience over time that's pretty remarkable.
It's about understanding those risks, doing your research, and then making informed decisions.
And that's where those educational resources from Money Metals Exchange can be so valuable.
Right, they're empowering investors with knowledge
Yeah,
so they can make smart choices.
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about the practical aspects of Money Metals Exchange, but I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier. The emotional aspect of owning precious metals.
Yeah, it's not just about numbers on a spreadsheet. There's something almost primal about holding a gold coin in your hand.
Right, it's tangible. It's real. It's not just data in the cloud.
It's a connection to history.
Exactly. And for a lot of people, that brings a sense of comfort and security.
Like you said earlier, it's a constant in a world of variables. Now, we've talked about the benefits, but what about the downsides? Are there any hidden costs or risks that we should be aware of?
Well, the biggest risk, as with any investment, is price volatility. The value of precious metals can go up and down, so you could potentially lose money.
But that risk can be mitigated by taking a long-term approach.
Exactly. Don't think of it as a get-rich-quick scheme. It's more about long-term wealth preservation.
And that's where Money Metals Exchange's focus on education is so important.
Absolutely. They give you the knowledge to understand those risks and make informed decisions.
Okay, so let's talk about their customer service.
Yeah.
What are people saying about their experience with Money Metals Exchange?
They seem to have a pretty good reputation for customer service.
Okay, good to hear.
People often mention helpful staff, quick response times, and a smooth ordering process.
So it sounds like they're committed to providing a positive customer experience.
Yeah, that's the impression I get. But, we did see those negative reviews about the fees.
Right, that's always a bit of a concern.
Yeah, it just highlights the importance of doing your homework.
Absolutely, don't just take anyone's word for it. Do your own research.
Right, contact the company directly.
Yeah.
Ask questions. Make sure you fully understand everything before you make a decision.
Okay, so informed consent is key. Now, we've talked about Money Metals Exchange's strengths, their transparency, their education, their security. What about their weaknesses? Are there any areas where they could improve?
Well, I think one area where they could potentially improve is addressing those negative reviews about the fees.
Okay.
Maybe they could be more proactive about providing detailed fee breakdowns on their website.
So it's about being super transparent and making sure customers feel like they have all the information.
Exactly. Transparency is key in building trust, especially when it comes to finances.
Okay. We've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the pros and cons of Money Metals Exchange, their strengths, their weaknesses, how they fit into the current economic climate. But the big question remains.
Is it right for you?
Exactly. And that's what we're going to wrap up in our final segment. So we've looked at Money Metals Exchange from all sides, the good, the bad, the shiny. But let's get real. Is it worth it?
That's the big question, isn't it? And the answer, like with most things, finances, it depends.
On what? Tell me.
Well, it depends on what you're looking for as an investor, your goals, your risk tolerance, what your overall strategy looks like.
So you're saying this isn't for someone looking to get rich quick?
Right. This isn't about timing the market or chasing trends. Precious metals are more about the long game.
Okay, so more of a slow and steady approach.
Yeah. Think of it as a way to hedge against inflation. Diversify your portfolio. Add some stability to your investments, especially in uncertain times.
Like the times we're in now, with all the economic ups and downs.
Exactly. When traditional investments like stocks and bonds might be feeling a bit shaky, precious metals can offer that sense of security.
That tangible asset that you can actually hold in your hand.
Exactly. Something real, not just numbers on a screen.
Okay, I get it.
Huh.
But why Money Metals Exchange specifically? Aren't there other companies out there selling gold and silver?
There are. But what stands out to me about Money Metals Exchange is their commitment to transparency and education.
Yeah, we've talked about that a lot. It seems like they really want their customers to be informed.
Exactly. They don't just want to sell you something. They want you to understand what you're buying and why.
So it feels more like a partnership than a sales pitch.
Right. They're empowering investors with knowledge so they can make smart decisions.
And they have all those free resources, the articles, the guides, the podcast.
Exactly. They've really gone above and beyond in that regard. But, we can't ignore those negative reviews about the fees.
Yeah, those are definitely something to consider.
Absolutely. Any negative reviews should be assigned to do your own research. Dig a little deeper.
Don't just take things at face value.
Exactly. Look at the whole picture. Weigh the good and the bad. In Money Metals Exchange's case, the positive seems to outweigh the negative.
But still, do your due diligence. Read the fine print. Understand everything before you commit.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to your finances.
Okay, so before we wrap this up, what's your one piece of advice for our listeners who are considering Money Metals Exchange?
I'd say start with education. Take advantage of those free resources they offer. Learn about the different types of metals. Understand the historical trends. Know the risks and the potential rewards.
Don't just jump in blindly because you're feeling FOMO or because someone told you gold is a guaranteed win.
Right. It's about being an informed investor, not an emotional reactor.
Okay. Great advice. So much great information in this deep dive. Thanks for sharing your expertise with us.
It's been a pleasure.
And to our listeners, we hope this has given you some clarity and maybe even sparked some interest in exploring precious metals as part of your investment strategy.
Maybe they'll even change the way you think about money altogether.
Food for thought, for sure. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, happy investing.